Someone has said that humility is the doorway to all goodness and virtue. One writer, in talking about sin, he said, people have tried to label like what is the worst sin or what's the greatest sin. But really the great sin that's at the heart of all other sin is the sin of pride. How we as people feel self-sufficient and we feel like we can do it on our own and that we're better than everyone else and we're stronger and we're smarter. And that pride just destroys us. It destroys our relationship with God, it destroys our relationships with each other, and it destroys us even from the inside. We've got to learn to beat that. And we can see the evidence of the problems of pride in our interactions with each other and just watching ourselves and all those things. But if we wondered if pride was a problem and if humility was important, we could just go to what Jesus said. Jesus said, look, you can't be my follower if you're not going to be humble. If you want to be great, if you want to enter into my kingdom, if you want to receive me, if you want to have a relationship with me, you got to be humble. You've got to be the least so that you can be with me, the greatest. So how do we develop humility? It's a difficult, challenging thing, and perhaps one of those challenges that's just a lifelong process that we have to go through as we're trying to become more and more like Jesus. But Philippians chapter 2, I think, gives us some helpful things that we can do to develop a deeper level of humility. This is kind of just a daily thing you could do and just kind of use as a checklist. Say, okay, I'm trying to be more humble. Here's how I'm going to do it. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. First part of that verse, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit. So the next time you're deciding where to go eat lunch with your coworkers, or the next time you're deciding what you're going to do on the weekend with your wife or your husband or your kids or your friends, or the next time you're picking a movie, or the next time, whatever you're doing, say, I'm not going to be selfish right now. I'm not going to look for what I want. And that'll help you to be more humble. A second thing we see there in verse 4 is not only do we need to stop doing selfish things, but we actually need to think about others in a different way. We need to think of others as more important than ourselves, which is kind of hard to do. But what if you started doing that? Everybody around you, you're not the center of the world. You're not the one who needs the attention. You're not the one whose voice should be heard because you're not the important one. Even if you are the important one, by the way. What if you started thinking about people and regarding people and treating people like they are more important than you? Third thing in verse 4, do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. So maybe the third thing is think about what can I do for someone else. If I'm not doing selfish things, if I'm thinking about other people that they're more important than I am, then the third thing I need to do is actually actively serve people, do things for others for their interests. It means I got to pay attention. I got to ask them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Get to know them so that you can serve. And if you do this, you're going to become more of what you need to be, what God made you to be. You're going to become a lot more humble. You're going to become a lot more like Jesus. Because verse 5 tells us that these are the things that are the attitude that we should have in ourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus. Jesus was someone who did nothing from selfishness. He was someone who, even though he was the Son of God, he thought that other people were more important than him. And he manifested that in his whole life by serving others and looking out for their interests and not for his own. And ultimately, he gave himself on a cross to show us what humility is all about, to show us how we can be people who are reaching upward together toward heaven.